Well, it's the start of day 2. Today's project is going to be making all the blocking. I have to make 13 and 14-inch blocking to line up with where the plywood's going to sit. It's funny how when you look at a video and realize that the time is an hour later than when you actually did it, and you look at your camera and say, "Wow, I'm adjusted wrong." So I'll have to fix that for this weekend. We're going to go up tomorrow and level the deck floor and finish nailing it actually, and then level it. And then it'll be ready for the plywood and the porch area. First thing I did was I collected up all the spare chunks off the 16 footers that I had purchased. They were actually turned out in rough cut 17 and a half of them. So I'm using all that extra as the blocking, most of them measuring really close and just cutting off an inch or two. Then I made up the rest of the blocking from live boards. Now, when it came down to everything being cut, I had 6 2x6x17 something left. So they called a Jamaica Cottage Shops tech guy. For life of me, can't remember his name. I wish I could. And asked him about the materials list issue. Why do I have 6 extra? And he went through it and he said, well, no, you should have about 5 extra, 6 extra. So it worked out great. And I can use them for stairs later on for the front because there's no design for the front porch to have a stair all the way across it. I'm going to have a door there, so hey, it's going to work out for me, the extra material. And I thanked them for helping me out with that. He also told me that I was correct on cutting it at 188 inches with the rough cut lumber that I had. Their rough cut lumber is more exacting. It's 1.5 by 3.5, like a regular 2x4. So with that thing I said about their thing being for wood from Lowe's, it's actually a thing being from wood they cut to exacting specifications. Where rough cut lumber, normally that you buy at a sawmill, is going to be really rough cut, and it's 2x4. I mean, it's 2 inches thick and 6 inches wide, the real 2x6. And that's the discrepancy there. But we got it fixed, and it's working fine, and I got everything cut and ready to go. Now I'm measuring a full-length board to get the rest of the blockers I need. Now here's another issue I got to fix. 2 issues actually. The second one, you can tell me, my sister already pointed it out. But see how it's raining, literally raining sawdust all over the place. Now when the wind's just right, it rains right back up my head. So I've got to get a hose to go on the back of the saw. There's a spot to put it, and that would collect up all the snow. I mean, the sawdust as it was snow. So this is for you, Donna. You guys can tell me what the other mistake I made. Donna, if she watches the video, she'll point it out for you. Here, I'm trying to demonstrate the difference in the lengths of 14-inch and 13-inch blockers that I cut. And I'm also showing you what I did with the little bitty chunks that I had left to try to make the supports for the form insulation that I'm going to put under the floor. I knew the audio was off and I'd have to talk over it, and so here it is. That's what I'm doing. Of course, those little blocks I made didn't work out. I had to do something different. You'll see that in a later video. The reason they didn't work out because if I hit them with a nail hammer, an air nailer, excuse me, it split the darn things. They were too small. So I had to change direction. I actually used some decking wood that I took off my deck at home and brought up there just in case I needed it, if nothing else, to burn it in a pile later. And here I am cutting all those little blocks. That didn't work out. I had 118 of them. That's okay. They burned in the fire down by the camper later that night really well. After I get a good set of coals going, anyway. It is wet wood. But that mistake got burned. And I enjoyed the starlights over the top. Now this saw is an old saw. I brought it out to show you what I did with it. And of course I didn't have the volume on, so that I cut those things lengthwise, and then I cut them stripwise so I could hang them on the boards down here where you see. And that's what's holding up the insulation. That saw is my father's old saw. It's got a new blade on it. Still works after all these years. I mean, still works. I built a shed out back here with it, and I built my deck wood with it, and still working. Love to have that thing on the job. This is the air nailer I'm using. I'm getting ready to reload it to finish nailing up all the supports for the insulation. Yeah, it's working real well. I finally figured out how to adjust it so it doesn't sink them in too far, because they've been going in pretty good. On the insulation portion, I don't care if they're going too far. But when I start putting the butt ends together and nailing them up, I don't want them launching in so far. August 3rd, 2017. I'm done for the night. I got this ready to nail up. Board joist is all set. They all got the drops in for the foam insulation falling on top of it. That was a mess. But it's ready to be nailed together, except for I gotta chisel that thing flat over. Right now I'm gonna go grab something to eat and call it a day. Tomorrow, July 4th. Now it's July 4th. And my son's coming up with some plywood and some insulation so we can start putting that floor together and nailing it in. When I decided to change direction for the day's progress, I got a chance to look at the wood pile now that I had space where all those 2x6s were. I needed to separate the siding because it was wet wood and I don't even know how long they had it cut. So I'm starting to separate it so that I can stack it back with spaces in the middle to get air in them and get them drying. Some of them must have been sitting in their pile for quite a while because they've got some pretty nasty looking stuff that you'll see later. But I think if I stain and get the right color stain, it'll dye it out, hopefully. My son's going to be showing up any time now. There's my son showing up. I'm describing what I've done so far and then telling him why we got to change what we're doing, what I'm doing, or the plan for the day was anyway. And he understood totally, and that's why we changed directions and got all his wood stacked that day. We also nailed and framed and squared the frame as well. We'll see that. Now we're measuring the floor for square. Now it's amazing how close we got to it. Now notice how the good eyes have the good end, the seeing end. But the distance we were off was the amount of distance created when a nail gun blasts through a 2x4 or 2x6 into another 2x6 the long way and pushes it away from the wood, which is about 1/8 of an inch. So when I went back and I got a hammer and nailed it down secure on that end, and again in the far right corner, we were perfectly square. That was shit luck, but that's what happened. We were perfectly square after nailing both ends together, just getting rid of the gap that the air nailer created. MC suggested that we screw in these extra pieces of deck wood I had into the corners so that they do not become unsquare, knowing we'd have to leave it for a week. I think it was a great idea, and that's exactly what we did. Now here's a shot of the one piece of plywood on top and all the foam insulation, but believe me, the rest of plywood is underneath that foam. We put the plywood on top to hold it down when we put a tarp over it. But that's all ready to go. He delivered it in the back of his truck for me, and that was great. Got the camper cleaned up, came up here. I got to clean all this stuff. As you can see, what we've done today, got done. Got all the wood separated. Divided, took air out. Some of it looks pretty nasty. Got my plywood here, my foam insulation for the floor. The floor is now square and level. I got to do a little more leveling. All that stuff's going to be covered up. That's why I figured I'd show you now. Little shout out for Steve Robb. I'm willing to bet you can't tell me why I got one of them to shout out to him. Leave in the comments, I will too. Another thing I want to talk about while I got you here. The plans call for this wood to be stood up as siding. I want to lay it down. Now they tell me I can't do what I think I'm going to do, but if I get any ideas, it'd be great. What I want to do is take the board and cut each end at a 45-degree angle. Then lay them down so that they hang over the piece below it and lets the water come cascading down. If anything else, I just put some sealant in there. I think it would work without the sealant because it's going to be wrapped. I'm going to wrap the building so I can insulate the inside later, but I'm going to put some wrap around it. And then I was going to hang the boards sideways so they go up and they make the lines longer. It makes the cabin look longer than taller. Because when you lay things down, it makes things look longer. But anybody got any ideas of how I could deal with that? It would be a great suggestion. Thank you. Just showing you what a lot of the wood looks like when you see this thing tip up. It's got a lot of the black in it. That's not the worst piece. That's just the one on top today. You can see down below that there's even more that look like that. If anybody's got any recommendations, they could throw them out there. That wouldn't hurt my feelings a bit. Right now, my only thought is a dark enough stain. But I really want it to look like a camp with real wood than something stained to death. I was thinking like clear is what I wanted to do, but I don't know what that looked like. It was cleared. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Martin Ingram. See you next week.